If you just bought a new camera and you're staring at the menu thinking, where do I even start? This video is for you. I'm going to walk you through every single setting I use to film my talking head videos. Not a short list, not 5 tips, but the whole thing. Shutter speed, ISO, aperture, frame rate, picture profile, file format, autofocus, all of it. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you why each setting matters, because knowing what to dial in is one thing, and understanding why it makes your footage look the way it does, that's what actually makes you a better filmmaker and content creator. So by the end of this, you'll have your settings locked in and you will be ready to go every single time you sit down to film. Let's get into it.
Everything, who in the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you say.
Quick bit of context before we dive in. Look, I film on the Sony a7S III, which is what I'm filming on right now, paired with a Tamron 28-75mm lens. Now, you don't need this exact camera or this exact lens. A lot of these settings and principles apply across the Sony range and honestly across most mirrorless cameras in general. What I want you to take from this video isn't just a list of numbers to copy. It's the logic behind the numbers, because once you understand the logic, you can adapt these settings to whatever camera you're currently working with. Also, I'm based in London, so I shoot on the PAL system. That means frame rate of 25 FPS. If you're in US or Canada, you're on NTSC, so your equivalent would be 24 or 30 FPS. Now, if you're new to cameras, don't worry, I'll explain as we go along. So let's start from the top. Okay, so the first setting is resolution. Now, I shoot in 4K always. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, 4K files are huge and my computer struggles with them. And look, that's a fair point. Now, if your editing machine genuinely can't handle 4K, don't worry about it, just shoot in 1080p. That'll do. It's still a great image, but here's why I encourage you to work towards 4K as soon as you can. When you shoot in 4K and you're editing for YouTube, you can crop into your footage in post with minimal to no quality loss. That means one wide shot becomes a wide, medium, and a close-up, all from the same clip. And when you want to repurpose that for Instagram, for example, or YouTube Reels, you can reframe it vertically without the image falling apart and getting all blurry. 4K gives you flexibility, and when you're filming by yourself with no one to adjust the camera for you, flexibility is everything. The file format I use is Zavik S4K. Record settings is 140, 422, 10-bit. Okay, so 10-bit is color depth. This basically means that you're capturing significantly more color information than a standard 8-bit footage, all right? That matters when you go to color grading. You've got more data to work with, so your grades look cleaner and more natural. Don't panic, that's all you need to worry about. Next up is frame rate. I shoot in 25 FPS. Now, if you're in the UK, Europe, or Australia, it's 25 FPS. That's your PAL standard, and it gives you the most natural cinematic motion for talking head content. But if you're in the US or Canada, you can go with 24 FPS for that cinematic feel. It's literally the same, or 30 FPS if you want slightly smoother motion. One thing to avoid though, for talking head content, don't shoot at 60 FPS unless you're specifically planning to slow down the footage in post. 60 FPS looks almost too smooth. It loses the kind of filmic quality and starts to feel a bit more like a home video than a professional piece of content. 25 or 24, that's your number for these kind of videos. Setting number 3 is shutter speed. Now, this one trips a lot of people up, so let me make it real simple. There's a rule called the 180-degree shutter rule. You've probably heard of it, or maybe you haven't. All it means is that your shutter speed is double your frame rate. So if I'm shooting at 25 FPS, my shutter speed will be 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 30 FPS, your shutter speed will be 1/60th of a second. If you're shooting at 24, you get the picture, right? And why does this matter? Okay, because the specific shutter speed gives you a natural motion blur. And a natural motion blur is what helps to make your footage look more cinematic rather than really jittery or harsh. You know, sometimes you see footage and it's like, it's harsh, okay? Now at 1/50th in a bright room or near a window, your image might be a little bit overexposed. So that's where you need to use an ND filter, okay? Think of it like sunglasses for your lens. Now, it will reduce the light coming in so you can keep your shutter speed locked in. We never really want to tinker our settings, okay? We want to always keep them the same. Now, I've covered ND filters in more detail in a separate video. I will link that video in the description. But for now, just remember, shutter speed equals double your frame rate. Lock it, leave it, Done. Our next setting is aperture. I shoot at f2.8, the lowest my Tamron 28-75mm lens will go. Aperture controls two things: how much light enters the lens and how much of the background is in focus. At f2.8, you get the background separation where you're still sharp in focus, but the background behind you has that nice soft blurred quality. That's what gives talking head videos that professional feel, polished look. It separates you from your environment and draws the viewer's eyes straight to you. If your lens doesn't go as low as 2.8, you don't need to worry about that. Whatever your lowest aperture is, use that. The principle is the same. Open it up as wide as it will go, let more light in, more background blur, simple. Next on our list is ISO. This controls how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. The golden rule with ISO is to keep it as low as possible. The higher the ISO, the more digital noise and grain that will creep into your image. On my A7S III, I shoot in S-Log3, so my base ISO is 640. This is the cleanest, most noise-free ISO on this camera for this picture profile. I stay here around 95% of the time. If I'm shooting at night though, or in a very dark environment, the A7S III has a second base ISO of 12,800, which sounds kind of insane, but this camera handles it remarkably well, so don't worry about that. That's one of the reasons it's such a popular camera for shooting in low light. Now, if you're not shooting in S-Log3 and you're on a standard picture profile, your base ISO will most likely be around 100, to be fair. So you can start there and then add light to your scene before you start cranking up your ISO. Want to be clear, ISO is not a substitute for good lighting, okay? If your image is too dark, the answer is to add more light to your room, not to crank up your ISO and introduce all that noise and grain. Better lighting always beats higher ISO, remember that. Okay, we're getting through them. Next up is white balance. Now this controls the color temperature of your image. Essentially, whether your footage looks warm or cool, or kind of neutral. I set mine to 5500 Kelvin and that gives me a natural daylight look that works well for talking head content. But here's the most important thing about white balance. Lock it. Turn on lock white balance on recording in your settings. If you leave it on auto, your camera will adjust the color temperature while you're filming. So if a cloud passes by or a light flickers somewhere, your footage shifts color mid-clip. And in the edit, that's a nightmare to fix. I remember it happened to me on a client shoot way back in the day. Oh my gosh, spent way too long editing. It was so painful. Pick your Kelvin value, lock it and don't touch it. I use 5500 Kelvin as my starting point and I make sure that my key light is set to the same. You can adjust slightly warmer or cooler than that depending on your lighting setup, but once you've set it, lock it. This next one is super helpful. Autofocus. I use face and eye detection autofocus on the A7S III and it's amazing. Not only is it fast, it's just so accurate. This is genuinely one of the best features on this camera for solo creators. It locks onto your face, specifically your eye, and then it tracks it continuously while you're filming. So even if I lean forward or turn slightly or move around, the camera stays locked on me. For talking head content, this means that you can set your camera up, hit record and trust that you're going to be in focus for the entire take. You're not manually pulling focus, you're not going in and out of focus and hoping for the best. The camera is doing it all for you. So go into your autofocus settings, find face and eye detection, turn it on. Make sure it's set to your face priority first, then eye. That's the setup I use and it's been reliable for me across hundreds, if not thousands of filming sessions. Now we've arrived at picture profile. Now this is the setting that makes the biggest difference to how your footage looks and it's also the one that confuses the most people. Picture profile. Here's how I'd approach this depending on where you are in your filming journey. If you're just starting out, use a standard picture profile, something like PP1 or PP2 on the Sony or whatever the equivalent is on your camera. Kind of just comes with the camera. Your footage will come out looking fine, natural, ready to use with minimal color grading needed. It's the simplest starting point and that's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you want more control over your color grade, this is where S-Log3 comes in and this is what I use. I shoot on picture profile 8, which I've customized with S-Log3 settings. Here's my exact settings and you can feel free to screenshot them, use them, tweak them to get whatever look you want. Now, straight out of camera, S-Log3 footage looks really flat, washed out, and honestly, a little bit ugly. And that's completely normal. That's the point. S-Log3 is capturing as much dynamic range and color information as possible, which gives you significantly more to work with when you color grade in post. And once it's graded, this is what it becomes. The trade-off is that you need to color grade every clip, okay? If you're not comfortable with that just yet, well, just start on a standard profile. Get consistent first, then when you're ready to level up your look, come back to this. This video will always be here. And I actually have a full color grading video where I walk you through exactly how I color grade my S-Log3 footage. And I'll link that in the description too. Look, if you're still here, you are a legend, and I just know this is going to help you level up your filmmaking. Last one, okay? And this is a small setting that makes a big practical difference. Turn on your rule of thirds grid in the display settings. This puts a grid over your live view so you can frame yourself properly every single time you sit down to film. For talking head videos like this, I would center yourself. But for B-roll, I would place yourself on one of the vertical lines rather than dead in the center. This just gives your frame more visual interest and breathing room. It takes 2 seconds to turn on, and we'll use it every single filming session. Small thing, big impact. Quick pause before we wrap things up here. If you're at a stage where you're getting your camera settings locked in, you're probably also thinking about how to actually plan and organize your content, what to film, when to film it, how to stay consistent without taking over your life. That's exactly why I built the Creators Command Center. It's a Notion template with everything in one place. Content calendar, scripting templates, filming checklists, personal brand roadmap, content ideas for any niche. Basically a system that I use to run my entire content operation as a solo creator. The link is in the description. It's £27 and it will save you hours every single week. Go check it out. All right, we have made it. Let's recap everything before we sign off. Resolution, 4K, shoot in 4K if you can, okay? If not, 1080p will do just fine. Frame rate, 25 FPS if you're in the UK or Europe, or 24 or 30 if you're in the US. Shutter speed, double the frame rate, 1/50th for me. Aperture, as low as your lens will go. Right now I'm at f2.8, which is why I got this nice separation. ISO, check your camera's base ISO, 640 for S-Log3 on my camera, 100 for standard profile. Make sure you check whatever your camera you're using is. White balance, mine is 5500K. Lock it in and make sure it doesn't shift mid-filming. Autofocus, face and eye detection turned on. And picture profile, you can start with standard or you can go to S-Log3 if you want, and my videos will help you figure it out. That's the full setting sheet. Screenshot this, save it, copy it, whatever works for you. These are the exact settings I've been using for years and they haven't let me down, and I rarely change them unless I'm doing so for like stylistic purposes. Now, if you found this video useful, hit that like and hype button. It generally helps this video reach more people who need it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we are building something good over here. And I'll see you, I said I will see you in the next one. Peace and love every single time. Denz.